forget all the hype and forget all the cool technology. Can we take a neat feature of AI and make it a necessary feature in AI? If we can prove to ourselves with customer usage and repeat value that we deliver, then there's something in the cycle.
If you're one of these traditional SaaS companies and you're not leveraging this technology, like you're probably gonna die.
We looked at Blockbuster, we looked at BlackBerry, and there is no hesitation in kind of looking at what is happening within the tech industry to say, this is big. Every year I've been as a CEO, I've had to reinvent what I'm doing and my mental constructs. And every year there's something completely different that we are trying to drive at HubSpot. It's the most challenging job I have ever done. And you got to give it your 200%.
Welcome to Grit. I'm Joubin, partner at Kleiner Perkins, a show where we go beyond the highlight reel and explore the personal and professional challenges of building history-making companies. Today's guest is Yamini, CEO of HubSpot, one of the few public tech companies pulling off over $2.5 billion of revenue and growing over 20%. Yamini joined HubSpot as the Chief Customer Officer in 2020, and their CEO, Brian Halligan, in 2021 had a tragic snowmobiling accident that thrust Yamini into the CEO position, first in an interim role and then full-time 6 months after. Enjoy the episode. I was just thinking when I was making my coffee, I'm kind of on a hot streak with former salespeople
there you go.
that have gone into the upper echelons of the professional world.
You started in sales.
Okay, okay, but I mean, yes, you're my kin, but you guys, you Chambers, Carl, you all are doing some pretty special things.
Carl is one of my absolute favorites. So I was at Dropbox when Carl was at Sequoia and he was an advisor. And I think I took most of his time. I'd be like, how many times a week can I talk to you?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I don't know. So I learned so much from him there.
Yeah, it's good. I appreciate you doing this.
Of course.
Yeah, really, I'm just really excited.
Thank you, Joubin. Me too.
Where are you from? Where's your name from?
I'm originally from India.
Okay.
South India.
Yeah.
And the name is I think it's half Sanskrit, half Tamil.
Okay.
I'm from Tamil Nadu, so I don't even know where it's from.
Have you ever met somebody else with your name?
No, I have not.
I've never met another Joubin, if that makes you feel better.
This is actually good.
When you were a kid, did you get frustrated? When they have the magnets at the gas stations where it's Ben and Bob and Jill and Jack.
Totally.
And I was always like, where's Joubin?
Yes.
I was even close, I was like, oh man.
I mean, and India has 1 billion plus people. And I still haven't met another Yamini face to face. I've now heard of other folks, but I've not met. And I'm like, okay, that's strange that in a country of 1.x billion that I haven't met another one. So I don't know. My parents went the strange route.
Do you ever go back to India?
Yeah.
How often?
Yeah. I mean, maybe once every couple of years. I now have teen boys, and the only way to get them to understand where we came from and have a sense of grounding in the world is to take them back and make them experience what I experience. It's always tough because they can't relate. They've only seen everything here, and then I'm like, you know what? You've got it good. They don't get what that is until I take them there, and then we go visit where we are from. My husband's also from India, so we go there and we spend time there, and they begin to get.
How old are the boys?
My first one is 18, going to college.
Yeah. Congrats.
And then the second one is 16 in sophomore high school.
And feel free to answer this however you want, but did you grow up with money in India?
Not at all. Not at all. So, our home that we spent most of my childhood in was about 350 square foot.
It was a mansion.
It was a mansion.
Yeah.
And, Joubin, it felt like a mansion. Now I can go backwards and look at that and say, oh, that was pretty modest. And we were squarely middle class, and my dad had a small business and he was running it, month to month, year to year. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. So they did everything possible for us, and we had no desires beyond what we got, but it was a small house.
Yeah.
It was a small house, and my sister and I were 2 years apart, and we would spend a lot of time like figuring out who gets the one desk in the house. And we would have to like do things special to have the desk. The other one was sitting at the dining table and we would have to be like running around. So yeah, it was like.
Is it weird for you?
Is this the real thing, by the way?
Oh, I just roll.
Like you stole.
I just roll.
Like,
I just roll. I just roll.
I was like,
Like this
okay.
whole thing is just a conversation wherever the wind blows us.
Right.
Did you with your kids?
Yeah.
So like, how big is HubSpot today, the company?
9,000 people, 3 billion-ish.
3 billion-ish,
Yeah.
market cap of?
Who knows today?
I have it in my notes.
Yeah.
Today might not be a good day to
Yes,
check.
Today is not a good day to check.
It's
About,
like, go ahead.
30 billion.
30 billion.
Yes.
And like, you're the CEO of like a very serious company. Your comp is like online. Like everybody, like they can look it up. Your boys can look up like how much you make. Like it's all there, right?
And they do.
And they do. Yeah, and you like make a lot of money, it turns out. Of course, you're like running a big company. And, like, is it weird? Like, is that like, do you like, when you come from so little,
Yeah.
do you have this weird, I don't know, like experience with like now that you obviously are not where you were when you grew up,
Yeah.
and your kids couldn't be further from where you were as a kid?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, is that weird? Do you worry about it?
So what I worry about the most for my kids is that, so I grew up in this super small town in a super small house with not a lot. And that honestly was the fire in my belly. And the way I grew up, my mom always thought that both of us, I have an elder sister who's 2 years older, and she thought that both of us had to get great education. We had to be economically independent. We had to like do great things in our life. And she always talked about that when we were growing up. And dinner tables would be, the first lawyer in India, the first woman lawyer in India to win a big case, the first, engineer to do something really cool, this doctor who would do something amazing, a mountaineer who did this, a pilot who did this. She would like.
It was achievement oriented.
Yeah. It was always like, look what women can do.
Huh.
And I know you're growing up here, but nothing should stop you. So it was this very inspired, childhood that I had. Now, it became pretty difficult because when I got to college, I was like, nobody was willing to take, an engineer growing up at that point in time. There was just a lot of like, why are you here? You should be doing some arts and science and you should be doing, something else, And so there was dissonance between how my mom had raised us and what the conventional choices for women growing up in the 70s, 80s looked like. So it was very, very different. But having said all of that, it was always achievement oriented, never monetarily like the most important thing. And for me, I always grew up thinking I had everything I wanted, even in my beautifully large, 350 square foot apartment. So it was never about, I need to make more money or I'm doing this for money. And it's a really odd thing because, I was telling you that I take my kids to India and, in the place that I grew up, we have, an orphanage that we sponsor and there are about like 100 kids and, we help them get an education and I make them go and spend days there. Because, it actually gives them a sense of, look, where you are and what your responsibility is in society is not just for you to, make money and live in the Bay Area. It is to figure out how you can actually have a broader impact and, for people that don't have it. And so I think it is odd. And they do Google me and we have the conversation. And the conversation I have with my boys is, if you like this, work hard to get it because none of this is coming to you.
You tell them that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I want the fire in the belly. And
they're like, Mom, you made 25 million last year. Like, how about like a car?
No. I've said that we will give them a good education.
Yeah.
And they're very clear that if they like the lifestyle that they have right now, they're going to have to earn the lifestyle that they have right now. And it's really important for me because, there has to be some fire in the belly. There has to be a reason for you to do what you want to do. And it has to come from within. It cannot just be given to you. And so, yeah, it's really important for me and my husband to raise our kids with a desire to have an impact in life, not just expect, a lifestyle that they now enjoy.
Do you think you can impose constraints like that? Maybe like your constraints were not imposed.
Yes.
Like that's just how your world
That's
was.
right, Joubin.
Whereas your kids' constraints are basically like you creating these constraints.
Yes.
But like at the end of the day, they still probably live in a nice house that they grew up in with you, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yes.
Like, does that work? Does creating somewhat of false constraints actually like is what keeps you up that maybe or maybe not that creates the fire in their belly?
Yeah. I don't know the answer. Look, my kids are teens, and we'll have this conversation maybe like 5 years, 10 years, and then I'll see if they really were able to, accomplish something or put themselves in a path to accomplish something. I'll tell you what, I used to worry a lot about this when they were young because we would travel on vacations and we'd go to nice restaurants. I'm like, where are they going to get it from? But I'll tell you, I work, a lot and I enjoy working a lot. My husband works a lot. We've both been very career focused and we both worked a lot. And surprisingly, I've just seen that has a huge impact in terms of the kind of work ethic and values that your kids get. And so my 18-year-old, he's a senior right now, going off to college. I'll tell you, the last 2 years, he's worked harder than me. And I was proud of that. And I saw him grind it out a lot more than me. And I was like, okay, maybe some of this is rubbing off. There's a little bit of osmosis and seeing how, the value system is. And so you can teach values or you can live values. And I think we've tried to live values and we're hoping that it kind of rubs off on them and they just take it forward in their life. And so it's a lot of conversations and it's a lot of living what you want your kids to kind of take when they're adults and they're not in the house.
When you say you work a lot, can I put a finer point on what that means?
Yeah, sure.
I
Let's
like
do it.
defining what working a lot means.
Yes.
Because I think everybody has different images of what hard work looks like in their minds.
Yeah.
What does hard work look like? Let's just take last weekend.
Yeah.
Were you working?
Oh, every weekend. There's not been a weekend that I've not worked in maybe 15 years.
And how do you construct your work on a weekend?
Yeah, this is a great question. So, I mean, look, I think I can't claim that I work really hard. I have a schedule that works for me. So, one of the things I found, especially post-COVID or during the pandemic, is that there was no constraint, right? Your office was 2 minutes away from, the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so you're working all the time. And so what I've come to is that during the work week, I start probably around 6:30 and my first call is at 7. And then it's a full day, lots of calls like everybody else. And then, I'll have dinner with the kids and then I'll work till 11. And that's my schedule. So, any days maybe 12, 14, 15 hours. And then what I try to do is Friday night when I'm done, whenever I'm done, it might be 8, 9, 10, whatever time I'm done on Friday, I don't touch my computer and I don't think about work till Sunday morning. And I've constrained myself on that to say, I need a break. It's almost like peak performance requires peak rest. And, you do need to take breaks.
Saturday is your free day.
Saturday is
Friday night, let's call it 7 p.m. and on, dinner and on.
Yes.
And then all day Saturday.
All day Saturday.
Well, what about if emails are hitting your phone?
I've said to people that I will not respond on Saturdays.
So everybody in the company knows, all 9,000 people, that you're not touching the email.
No one's sending me. From a company, no one is. I might get some board members or,
You're not responding to them.
I'm not responding to them. I don't respond on Saturdays. And then Sunday morning, it's a full work day for me. And it's my work day. It's this is the time I read. This is the time I do deep thinking. This is the time I write. And it's a full day. And I don't send out emails. My team knows that. Most of the time, almost always I will schedule it for Monday morning. And so they're probably like waiting for this 5 a.m. Monday morning emails, string of emails from me. But I work on Sundays and I think on Sundays and I do everything. And then I send it out. And then, that's my day. I enjoy my Sundays.
I was just having this conversation with my girlfriend because every Sunday is also my work day. Like it's a full work day.
Yeah, great.
And she knows the routine.
Yes.
Like I wake up.
Yes.
I have a coffee. I start working at the kitchen table. I go to the gym. I get a haircut. Whatever hair I have left, I shave it off, and then I go back to work. And she was asking me like, why?
Yeah.
And I think the obvious answer is like, well, there's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I think the more unobvious answer that I was talking to her about was like, I don't even know what Sunday scaries are anymore because I feel like I have so much control over the coming week.
Yes.
That like, what am I scared of? Like, I feel like I'm like capturing control. That Sunday.
Exactly. I mean, I enjoy Sundays. I'm not scared of Sundays. I enjoy it because it's my time. I get to decide what I'm learning, what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what I'm writing. It is completely my schedule. I have nothing else to disturb me except my own thoughts. And so I enjoy Sundays. And by the way, like this is such an exciting industry. Like tech industry has always been exciting. But right now, it is so exciting. There's so much to learn. Last weekend, I had Lovable up and I was like trying to create an app and I did. Now, I used to code way back and then I went into, go to market and sales. And so I've literally not coded in 20 years. And I was there, on Lovable, creating an app and feeling so powerful and vibing with it.
Yeah.
So and it's fun. Like that's my play day. It's like so fun. I'm glad that you think so too.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah. Can I jump right into a moment in time that I find fascinating?
Yeah.
Which is when you started at HubSpot, which was how long ago?
5 years and 3 months. Yeah.
5 years and 3 months. Not that anyone's counting.
No, we're not counting.
63 months ago.
Yes.
You started, what was the job when you started?
I joined as the Chief Customer Officer.
Okay.
And that is running marketing, sales, customer success, and operations.
Okay.
So go-to-market functions.
All go-to-market functions. Yeah. And then what year was that?
January 2020.
January 2020. So
yes.
Like the first cases of COVID were just happening here, basically?
No, not even. Not even.
It was about to happen.
It was like in hindsight, it probably was happening somewhere in the world, but not to anybody's knowledge.
And then COVID happens.
Yes.
And of all the businesses in software and technology, HubSpot was right up there with the best of them of like your stock went crazy. Yeah. Like it got pulled forward like crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like it was nuts.
It was nuts.
Like your market cap like doubled, didn't it?
Yes, our revenue more than doubled, right? Like we were growing
from
net
what base?
new ARR. So, okay, we were about, an $850 million company at the end of 2019. And January 2020, I joined. And Brian Halligan, our co-founder and at that time CEO, he was like, ease yourself in. For 90 days, I want you to do nothing. I want you to go and like talk to people, talk to customers, talk to partners, talk to employees, and kind of like form your own opinion. And then you remember March, March was when borders started shutting down and people were asked to go back and into their homes. And in 1 week, we saw churn grow like 200%, right? Like we had like the massive churn in the first couple of weeks of the month. And we were like, okay, we got to do something. And Brian was like, forget what I told you. I need a plan in 5 days. And we're going to go to the board and we're going to present what the plan is in 5 days. And we started like, hustling. We had daily meetings multiple times with the go-to-market leadership team. And we were like, okay, what are we going to do? And so we came up with a plan. And Joubin, the plan was this. The plan that we presented to the board 5 days, of brainstorming later was we're going to cut the price of our, starter tier by more than 75%. We're going to take a lot of paid features and move it to our free features. And we're going to create a pool of nearly $20 million as a customer relief fund. And now looking back, the board looked at us and said, what is that plan? And we said, look, customers are churning. they're all going, to go bust unless they figure out how to do digital marketing.
Because these are all small businesses.
These are small businesses.
That were getting locked down.
Completely.
Yeah.
And if they don't get to figure out how to market, digitally, and if they don't get to figure out how they drive sales digitally, they will go out of business. And so this is a moment in time where loyalty of our customer base is really important. And I still remember the board asking me, $20 million in relief fund. How long do you think it's going to take for you to recover that relief fund? And I looked at them and I was like, I don't know. I don't know. It might take 6 months. It might take 9 months. It might be never. And I say it out of deep conviction, not because I'm being crazy here, but I'm saying it out of deep conviction that if we can do the right thing for the customer, and in this moment of sheer panic, we can help them, then we earn the right to serve them and we can grow. And you're absolutely right. So June came along and then, everybody wanted to figure out how to drive digital marketing, how to drive digital sales. And that year in 2020, we grew the fastest. In 2021, our growth rate internally with the net new ARR was something like 85%. That was
on like $1 billion base.
On $1 billion base.
That's insane.
Yeah. But, it was, as you said, there was a lot of pull through. Now looking back, we can say, okay, there was a lot of pull through and, people bought a lot. And then, obviously we needed to keep that growth up. And obviously we needed to make sure that we were serving. But, growth at that scale can be a challenge. We're not ready. We were not ready in terms of our infrastructure. We were not ready in terms of who we hired, how we onboarded them, how we made them successful. It was like, grow, because this is what customers need.
Yeah.
Crazy times, right?
And that is absolutely insane because you whiplashed first towards contracting.
Yeah.
Right? Like for a few months of a hard contraction, the bottom was falling out with churn. Then you basically go on a 1.5 year run of demand in the next 5 to 10 years getting pulled forward to this present 18 months.
Yeah.
Then in order to meet that demand, you and basically every other tech company was like, well, I think this is how the future is going to be forever. People are going to be digital, people are going to be remote. We're just pulling the inevitable forward and this is our new normal, right? That was kind of like the ethos of the time.
I think that was the ethos, although you kind of knew that it was not sustainable, right? Like the kind of growth that, and we were seeing some portion of that, but in Zoom, what was happening with Zoom was even crazier. We would look at, our 80% growth rate and they were growing 350 and we were like, oh my God, that is crazy. And we know that was not sustainable, but that was the absolute ethos. It is, we have to grow, we have to serve, we have to make sure that we can keep up with the demand at that time.
And I guess that's the thing where I hear a lot of founders and CEOs now say, oh, I kind of grew irresponsibly through that period. But my question is, if you're growing at 85% on $1 billion base and you have all of this demand, how do you have to hire people and you have to hire people really quickly and you have to do it remote. So you're going to lower the bar because there's no other choice. I don't know what gives there.
No, look, I think, you can always look back at events and have a level of clairvoyance that you didn't have at that point. So I don't believe in, saying, oh, we grew irresponsibly. We had demand and our job was to make sure that we were helping our customers through a very important digital transformation, and we did it. Now, I would say that there were parts of our infrastructure in terms of the data, in terms of the systems, in terms of processes, we were totally not ready for that type of growth. And I also think that who we hired, again, the ethos of that time was that the Metas and the Googles were giving out these big comp packages and they were hiring and we were okay, we got to compete and we have to continue to hire. I think it was not irresponsible. It was how we met that moment of, in time and how we were trying to do it. And now we've learned a lot. I think we've had to put the foundations back again. We learned that, some of the folks during that time were really good at order taking. But then when, the tides turned and we had to get them to fish, they didn't have the skill set. We didn't hire them for that skill set. And so we had to like retrain them or actually let go of them and hire a whole new set of folks. And it's all been hard. It's all been hard. Like,
Yeah. I'm just thinking about this now for the first time, but like the general ethos now
Yeah.
in whatever it is, March of 25
Mm-hmm.
is everyone's building out some version of a tuned frontier model that they're taking off the
Yes.
shelf from Anthropic or OpenAI.
Correct.
They're hiring a bunch of expensive AI engineers that everybody is continuing to compete for,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like everyone is throwing a bunch of compute at a problem.
Yes.
Okay. Everyone says that we don't have enough data. Our data is not in order, right?
Yeah.
Like all of these things, like, I don't know, like I'm just hearing you say these
Yeah.
things and I'm like, oh, this is the current thing.
Yeah.
Like this is just a different name to
Yeah.
the current thing.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you are right. It seems different, for the better part of the last decade, everybody was like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Maybe it's web 3, maybe it's, something else. And, we were all kind of like looking for what is the next thing after SaaS. And I do think that minus the hype, minus all the hot takes about AI, it is a truly transformative technology. Not because of how cool it is, but because I think it fundamentally reshapes the kind of work that we can now do, right? And look, you were in sales. I when I started at Siebel, that was the original CRM company in sales, the first thing was like, here's a target account selling methodology, and then you have a CRM system that is your Rolodex. And so when you meet someone, you meet like 5 people during the day, you go in there and you enter your contacts of who you met. And then you're putting in notes of what conversations you had with them. And then you are trying to send an email to all of them to like make sure that you're developing those relationships. That was the CRM. The CRM was for a seller to do tasks in order for them to drive a level of productivity. And that's what we grew up in. Now you look at like AI, what you can do today is you can listen to this conversation. You can, AI can listen to this conversation and say, Yamini is talking to Joubin. Joubin is not in her contact base. And this is the conversation that they had. And this is the follow-up they should have. And when I go back, it can say, do you want me to add Joubin to your contacts? Yes. Do you agree that this is the summary of your conversation? Yes. Do you want to send this follow-up? Like, yes, okay, it's done all of that. And that's now possible. And that is what is exciting. The jobs that we all did as a marketer, as a salesperson, as a support person is now completely getting rewritten, and we can do more. And that is what is so exciting about this. While there are some parallels in terms of the ethos of like how crazy people are growing and all the conversations that are happening, this is fundamentally exciting because you can do better things with your time and you can reimagine amount of work that can be done. And it is no longer about software helping you do tasks. It is about software doing tasks to help you that then maximizes the results and the outcomes that you can achieve in the time that you spend.
I totally agree. I mean, when I was starting out in my career, like I was probably making 100 cold calls a day and writing literally 400 to 500 emails a day and copy and pasting them. And we're investors in a company called Nooks.
Yes.
It's just going to do it all.
Right.
It just does it all.
Right.
It literally just does all of that work.
Yes.
I didn't need to be doing that work.
Exactly.
What a waste of time.
Exactly.
I still needed a job
Yes.
to do. There was a job for me to be done there, but it was not that job.
Well, and think about this. The job to be done for you as that sales rep, and this is how I started my career as well, is to close deals and is to win business, right? Is to be in front of customers, is to understand your customer's pain point and to win them as a customer. That was the job to be done. In order to do that job, you researched companies, you cold called, you wrote a bunch of emails, you followed everything up, and then you did all of that to get a sliver of time in front of the customer. And that was like the paradigm then. And look, I've been in sales and go-to-market for a very long time. You know, the really incredible statistic, for 20 years, I've been tracking this, which is what's the time a salesperson spends in front of a customer? And this has not moved. It's like 25%. And if you got your act together and you have great operations, you have amazing data, you have great systems, it's 27%. So you literally have like a 2% improvement if you get everything right in terms of the time in front of customer. And everything else is the prep that you're talking about. It's the research. And then, when I first moved on to operations, I'd like literally beg the sales team to be like, can you please complete your notes in the system? Because the next person needs a better handoff. So that is changing. And it's so cool. It's so exciting to see what, companies are doing. HubSpot is completely there. And that's what we're trying to imagine for our customers.
Like, I agree. I think this
Yeah.
is a real thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like at the time of crypto,
Yes.
or at the time
Right.
of COVID,
Yes.
everybody also thought it was a very real thing.
Yeah.
And in the, the days of everyone being remote and it's going to last forever and this digital demand is going to sustain for decades to come.
Yeah.
The problem is, which is similar to now, whether it's true or false, if you're wrong,
Yeah.
if it's true and you're wrong and you didn't make the right investments at that point, you're screwed.
Yes.
Meaning like
Yes.
if you're growing 100% at $1 billion base
Yep.
and you're just like, oh no, this isn't going to last. And you're like, and it does last.
Yes.
You just left like hundreds of millions of dollars
Exactly.
on the table.
Exactly.
Right. Or like even these big tech companies now, like Meta
Yeah.
and Google
Yeah.
and Microsoft, the investments that they're making in infrastructure are insane. Like
is
insane.
It is.
It's insane. Like we've never seen dollars spent like this.
Exactly.
But like, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Like
Wait.
what if they're wrong?
Yeah.
What if this is maybe not even enough investment?
Yeah.
And Microsoft decided not to do it and Meta and Amazon did.
Yeah.
Like they missed the whole thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so
This is why it's hard.
it
This is so hard.
So I think one of the things I feel is there's a lot of hot takes and hype and all of these. And every cycle, whether it turns out to be real or not, has like hot takes and every day like some crypto this and Web3 that and now AI this, right? It really comes down to customer value. And you got to go back to, it doesn't matter what all this technology, talk does. You got to go back to who's your customer? What is their job to be done? And can you improve that and add value?
Mm-hmm.
That's that's how we look at it. We have like a North Star, which is solve for the customer, SFTC. We talk about this all the time. And then it comes back to forget all the hype and forget all the cool technology. Can we take a neat, feature of AI and make it a necessary feature in AI?
Mm-hmm.
If we can prove to ourselves with customer usage and repeat value that we deliver, then there's something in the cycle. If it's not, if it's the cool thing that you do today and then next week it's like churned and everybody is left, then there is no value. So I think you got to like ground yourself in customer value and truth. And if you do that, then you can sift through it. But, at the beginning of the cycle, you just have to use some kind of pattern recognition to say, is this going to work or not, and make a bet. And you cannot be wrong. And, that's what happens. Like I would say that, SAP, I used to work at SAP and, back in those days, there was a lot of question of, is cloud real? Will on-premise ever go away and is cloud real? And would, CIOs ever trust data that's not in their data center and is in some kind of public cloud? And these were real debates there. Now it's not the same thing. I think all of us, who've been established for a while, or if it's a startup, we know and see the value of AI and we're kind of like really focused on what is that value for customers.
If Siebel had deep belief and conviction
Yes.
that SaaS
Yeah.
was actually going to be the thing
Yeah.
that ultimately upended their business and enabled Salesforce to become a big company,
Correct.
they probably would have done that.
Yes.
They just
Right?
didn't.
That's right.
And then they got cannibalized.
That's right.
And I think that's about to happen all over again to many of these SaaS companies.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? Like if you're one of these traditional SaaS companies, traditional as in like you were born in the last 20 years,
Yes.
and you're not leveraging this technology,
Yeah.
like you're probably going to die. Like, you're probably going to get
Yes.
completely upended.
I have like two thoughts here. First of all, every one of us running tech companies now, we've got the memo. we read Innovator's Dilemma.
Yeah.
We looked at Blockbuster.
Yeah.
We looked at BlackBerry.
Yeah.
We lived through Siebel. We lived through all of this. We've got the memo, right? And there is no hesitation in kind of looking at what is happening within the tech industry to say, this is big, we're going, right? I mean, I think you're absolutely right. The second thing is that I think about this like disruption conversation slightly differently, where, if you think about the way to define disruption is that you have a certain market, there is a new, startup that comes into that market and they eat your, TAM and they reset your ability to grow. That is the disruption. I think what is happening right now is that there is a software market, but that market actually now got 10x bigger because it's now software and work market. What you talked about paralegal is work. Typically, software never did that, and it might have provided some help, but it didn't actually translate work. So the overall addressable market went from software to software plus labor, which
is
means,
10 times bigger.
Which is 10 times bigger,
Yep.
which means your job is not sitting there thinking about disruption and is my market going to get smaller? Your job is to kind of define what you are going to do to get a bigger percentage of this 10x market.
That's right.
That is different. And I think that's why the incumbents or the ones that have been around, they're moving faster and they are redefining kind of like what this looks like within the market. And it's
That's
exciting.
Right. I agree. And I think like taking that even a step further,
Yes.
like think about, let's just say the customer support use case.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You are 100% not going to need as many customer support people.
Yes.
That's the truth.
Truth.
You are going to replace or not hire future customer support people that
True.
you otherwise would.
True.
Those are whatever salary they are. You're just getting rid of those salaries
Yep.
or reallocating what you would be otherwise hiring in those
Yep.
salaries towards something else.
Yep. Reallocating
At like
it. Yep.
a 20 to 50% clip
Yep.
or more.
Yep.
That's like very different than charging a license or a seat-based fee
Correct.
for some service that you're offering. It's very different.
Absolutely.
The incumbent question is one that I'm really fascinated by, though, because
Me too.
we don't want to go up against. Ideally, it is a non-tech savvy incumbent that we are cannibalizing, not necessarily HubSpot. Okay.
Thank you for saying that.
So, I'll give you an example
Yeah.
that comes to mind right now. There's a company called Axon. You've probably never heard of it. Okay. They're a $60 billion public company. Okay. And they do tasers. They have a 99% market share of all tasers in the country. They
Interesting.
sell to police stations, whatever. Okay.
Interesting.
Product number 2 was body cams for police officers.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I think on Amazon or Microsoft's public cloud, their footprint is larger than Netflix and Snapchat combined or something with how much data they're sending to the public cloud. Just to give
Wow.
you a sense of their scale.
Yeah.
Okay. What they're doing is they have built a co-pilot for police officers, because after a police officer does a traffic stop,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
they then have to go back to the office and
Right.
transcribe
Yes.
all the things that happened.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Now they can
Yep.
just dictate it
Yes.
as it's happening,
Yes.
and it automatically transcribes that in a way that's saving them literally hours a day.
Yes.
That's like half their job.
That's right.
Like, do we think we should make a bet in the police co-pilot? Probably not in that respect,
Yeah.
because they have all the data.
Yeah.
They have all the data.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
like that part gives
Yeah.
me pause.
Yeah.
Right? Now, for like doctors, I think there's a pretty obvious use case there.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So there's a maybe like a difference here,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
Maybe one more point, and then I want to hear what you think.
I first of all, I love that you're thinking, because this is the, have a thesis of where, AI can add the most value, and then build a hypothesis and then like invest. And I think that's fantastic. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think like the weird thing is that the current state of the market is that we are paying rent for somebody else to use our data. Like if you're like, this is the thing that I haven't quite wrapped my arms around yet.
Yeah.
Let's take Salesforce.
Right.
Okay. That's not Salesforce's data.
It's the customer's data.
It's the customer's data.
Yeah.
That's different than like the police use case.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know how that unfolds.
Yeah.
Because I think that they have a huge data advantage. But like, I think you have a huge data advantage.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
But like how you use that data.
Yeah.
And what tools can you offer? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I just don't know how that's going to like play out.
I think you're exactly right. Like there are certain things where you can very clearly see who owns the data and who gets the value out of it. I'll tell you, the ability to bring together the data and give it to the customer who, is responsible and who owns the data is actually valuable. What I mean by this is this. So there's like one of the reasons why customers like HubSpot, is we help them get all their structured data about the company, the contact, the notes, all of that in one place, and it's super easy. Now, we are bringing together all of this unstructured data, the conversations, the emails, the Slacks, the Zoom meetings, the phone calls you have, the transcripts from all of that, because AI can do more with that unstructured data. We've always had access to unstructured data. You can just do more with it. The way we think about it is that we have a natural advantage of bringing the structured data, unstructured data, and even external data from 10Ks, 10Qs, transcripts, communities, like any of that together to give that back to the customer. We don't even need it for training. Like if we say, hey, your salesperson is having this conversation, and if I look at the 10 unstructured conversations, these 2 are best in class. These other 8 have to learn. So I can actually expose what the top 2 reps are doing and make it better for the other reps. That's a value. And the ability to bring data together, to drive real-time insights from a larger volume of data to help customers get value is the advantage, right?
Yeah.
Now, how it plays out, who can get access to that data, how those use cases transform, the work that we are talking about, that remains to be seen. But I do think that there is a advantage in bringing the data together, even if you're not owning that data.
I totally agree with you. The other thing that I wonder how you think about it is like going back to my AI engineer comment. Okay.
Right.
Like if you want to go build the products and services that you think your customers need in this new world, you're going to have to hire the best of the best.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Those best of the best, often, they'll look at a company like Harvey.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, wow, that's the new shiny thing.
Yeah.
That's who you're competing against for that talent.
Yeah.
And so if talent is the enablement function to get you from where you are to where you want to go, like that often, I imagine that's tricky.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think it has always been tricky, right? And the part of it is the risk profile of the person and what they're trying to learn. I think in the case of HubSpot, we act like a startup within a startup. There are so many innovation bets and so many innovation teams that
you always have, by the way.
Which we have, right?
Like your history is that.
Yeah, we've put these bets, and like now we're actually accelerating the pace of that product and innovation bets that we're putting. And so, a lot of times we'll have conversation of like, okay, you want to do something, why don't you do it here? And here's how we'll enable it. And by the way, we'll give you the resources and there's a higher chance of you being successful. And ultimately, it comes down to the risk profile of that individual. Of course, they can go work for startups and knowing that not every one of these companies are going to become successful, or they can work in an innovation bet within, a company like HubSpot. It really comes down to what the risk profile is. And I think that if you continue to do interesting, problems and you do it in a way that people learn, then you will be able to attract the right talent for your organization. And this is the period that we're all going to look back and say, oh my God, how much did we learn in that period, right? Like there are points in times of my, career where I'm like, oh my God, maximum learning. And that's what, excites me. And that's right now. I tell our teams all the time, I'm like, you're going to look back at these, 3 years where I know we're working super hard and we're going even faster, but you're going to look back and say, that is when I learned the most. And that is when it was like exciting.
Does it keep you up at night? Like, everyone now sees basically every category up for grabs.
Yeah, the race is reset.
And of course, like, you're in one of the mothers of all markets.
Yeah, it is reset. There are like 20 companies, maybe 100, all looking at CRM. Absolutely. I mean, it does, Joubin, I wake up excited and scared at the same time. It's like this, I'm like, okay, today we feel really good.
Yeah.
And there's so much excitement. And we, last week we had this whole, we brought the leadership team with our top GMs in product as well as engineers. And we had like 2 days of brainstorming and we had like so many ideas and we're so excited. And then you like look at some other tweet from someone else and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I think it's both. And you're going to have to like really distill it down to what do you need to do now? What do you need to do in the next 3 months? And what's the hypothesis of the world that you have over the next year? Because I think anything over that period, who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, 3 years, 5 years from now, if AGI comes in, who knows what the world is going to look like? We can only plan for the next year in very, very, short increments of time.
We run a group of CIOs here at Kleiner Perkins, and there's about 30 of them. And we met yesterday, and I was putting together a deck to give like kind of a state of AI, state of the valley, all this stuff. Okay.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
I gave the same presentation. 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I basically had to redo the entire deck.
Yes.
2 months ago.
Yes.
Basically had to redo the entire deck.
I believe.
I was like, what is happening?
Yeah. Isn't that exciting though?
It's incredibly exciting.
Yes.
John Chambers used to say that every 5 years, he felt like he would have to reinvent himself as a company and reinvent Cisco.
Yep.
Reinvent Cisco and reinvent himself as a leader.
Yep.
Every 5 years.
Yeah.
That was like about his clip. And he was like, that was hard. Right now, these early stage startups are reinventing themselves literally every 6 months.
Yes.
Every 6 months.
I mean, we're a much bigger company. Every year I've been as a CEO, I've had to like reinvent what I'm doing and my mental constructs. And every year there's something completely different that we are like trying to drive at HubSpot. So yeah, it's no longer 5 years. It's like probably 6 months, maybe even 3 months. You're trying to like run really, really fast. So
well, and it's even crazier for you because you have all of these new people that are popping up trying to take your throne.
Yes.
Okay. You have these foundational models that are dropping 10x in price every year.
Yeah.
10x.
Yeah.
And then they're improving, I don't know what, but like a lot, like crazy fast every year.
Yeah.
So it's like all of these things at once. And you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Exciting.
It's insane.
It's exciting.
Can I revisit? So COVID happens. You're the chief customer officer.
Yes.
Then at what point did you become the CEO? What point in time?
Yeah. So March 2021. Do you know the story? Like what?
Tell me the story.
So what happened was this. So I joined, and first year we're like running super hard. At the end of year one, Brian texts me, and he says,
Brian's the CEO.
Yeah, Brian, our co-founder
Yep.
and CEO for 15 years. He texts me on the eve of Christmas, and he's like, "Hey, you'll be my successor, and you're part of my succession plan." And then I texted him back saying, everything is going to be fine. You're going to be doing this for another 10 years. And then we had like one conversation about it. And that was it. And then March comes along. And unfortunately, Brian had a snowmobile accident. And he broke a lot of bones. Thankfully, he's now completely fine. But he needed to go and take care of himself. So he actually texts me again. He says, remember I told you about this? If I ever get hit by a bus, you have to run it. I need you to run it. And this was March 2021.
This is like from the hospital sending you this.
Yeah. And this is like 15 months after I joined the company. And we were like, okay, you take the time, because he needed to recover. He needed time for surgeries and all of that stuff. And we said, okay, you can do that. We'll take care of it. And this was March 2021. This was the time the company is like growing like crazy. And we're trying to, grow fast enough to make sure that we're capturing all of the growth. And and I said, so what do you want me to do? And he said, don't screw it up. And
He actually said that?
He did. He used a different word, but I won't say it.
And did he actually said that?
Yes.
You're like, oh, great. And was it an interim CEO or
Yeah.
was it the CEO?
No, that was an interim CEO.
Because he was like, I'm coming back.
Yeah, he was like, well,
And you always thought Brian's going to be here
yeah,
forever.
I think so. We didn't even have that conversation. He was like, run it, don't mess it up, and keep going. And I for sure thought that he is going to come back and run. And so I had this list of when Brian comes back, he needs to fix these things. And it was a very long list. In 6 months, it had grown to like multiple pages. I need to talk to him about this and this and this. And so he comes back. And by the way, he's completely fine now. But he comes back in like, I think it was July or August. And
3-4 months later.
Well, 4 months, he was not fully recovered. And we were thinking that he's going to, be back in like 6 months. And he goes, no, you're doing it and keep doing it. The board and I think that you're doing a great job and we want you to become, the CEO. So in August 2021, I moved from what I was doing as an interim CEO to kind of taking on the CEO. And it was crazy times, right? Because that was the year we were growing like crazy. We'd done some of these transitions. It was tough for the leadership team to kind of like take the company, make sure that we had this whole internal, challenge of running the company when the founder was out taking care of himself. And then we had to like make sure that we were making the right decisions to grow. So crazy times, yes.
And then basically within a year from that point, interest rates go up.
Oh, yeah.
And your like growth rate gets cut in half and you're like, well, welcome to the show. Like, Here we go.
Well, it was not even that. Like October 2021 was the peak of the market. So I had like 2 months, October 2021 was the peak of the market. And then obviously things started going down. By the time we came into 2022, April 2022, customers were clearly pulling back.
Right.
And high interest rates, high inflation. Now we can look back and say that combination of pumping a lot of money into the economy and letting the interest rates go flying and driving inflation. This is just not a good combination. But I think the impact of it was by April 2022, we started seeing the pullback. And then we're like, okay, turn the whole ship around. We got to like slow down hiring. We got to like slow down, where we're going to grow. And we have to like recalibrate all of the plans. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster.
When you became CEO, how'd you feel? Like, what did you actually think?
Look, I think my life kind of flashed in front of me, and people say that. But look, I grew up in a super small town. When I was growing up, we didn't have a high school in my town. So my mom moved to a different city to get my high school education completed. And then I had this dream of coming to the US and I came here with honestly, $300 in my pocket after I spent, the first semester fees and, renting a house. So, God, like it was just absolutely crazy. And I still remember like coming down from the conversation with Brian. My kids and my parents were, downstairs and I was crying. And my son looks at me and he says, Mom, did you get fired?
No way.
And he was like, what happened? Did you get fired? And I was like, no, I got, Brian wants me to run the company. And I was like literally in tears, super emotional.
Why?
Again, like never in my life did I think that I was going to be in a public company in a C-suite role, first of all, and certainly not in a public company running it. And that was not part of my vision for myself. I wanted to come to this country. I wanted to learn. I wanted to get a good education. I wanted to have a job. I wanted to be economically independent. And I had the fire in my belly to be good at what whatever job I did, I wanted to be the best at it. And it was always about learning and growing and seeing people around me and getting inspired. And it was never about getting to a certain level. And, it was like people talk about the American dream. Like this is more than my dream. Like I did not dream that big. And it was just super emotional to kind of, see that Brian and the board had the confidence that I could do something like this. So, I consider it my biggest honor and privileged to be leading HubSpot.
What changed? What surprised you the most in how your day-to-day changed from chief customer officer to CEO?
The number of stakeholders that you now have to manage and the almost impossible task in getting everybody's approval at any given time. When you are, in go-to-market roles, very, very clear, you're focused on the customers. Customers, number one, partner, maybe number two, and then your team and employees, number three. And you really are focused on these three stakeholders. And, my framework had always been, if you can maximize the value for the customer and you can maximize the value for the company and you can line it up for, what an individual rep in your organization, wanted to do. If you can line it up, then you can actually maximize outcomes from all. And my mental framework was, how do you do that? How do you maximize customer value, line it up with company value, line it up with rep value? And any system I put in place or any product we were trying to sell or any incentive change we're making, it was, customer, company, rep. That was what I, would base my decisions on. And now you're in this world where it's certainly customers, it's certainly partners, it's certainly employees. And then you have shareholders. Your ultimate boss is like your investor and shareholder base. And then you have board and managing the board. And then you have founders who are trying to figure out what their life is going to be like after, being a CEO for such a long time. And then you have a lot more constituents. And I think what I've recognized is that it's really hard to get it right across all of them. You may be able to get it right for many of them, but if you did something for that is really for customers, you might have to delay the impact that it has on your company that then shows up with investors. You can't maximize for all. It's a very, very difficult set of constraints that are there. And so, yeah, it's, and then for me, part of it was also, while I started my career as an engineer, I have been in go-to-market for a better part of 2 decades. And so the initial question was how is she going to
drive product?
And, I've always had this sense of being behind, right? I grew up in a small town, which meant that I would look at my cousins and family in bigger cities that had opportunity. I was behind. I came to the US, I was behind. It took me a while to kind of get used to a new country with a new system, with the new, ways of communicating. I was behind. And then I was an engineer behind, trying to become a salesperson. And then I was a go-to-market person behind, trying to help with product. And so, there's this thing of okay, if you're behind, what is it that you can do to drive the right outcomes and the results? And maybe that's what is, those are points in time when I feel like I'm behind, which most of my life I feel like I've been behind. It gives me the drive to learn and to grow and to take that as a challenge and to say, great, I understand that doubt or I understand that sentiment. I'm going to crack it and I'm going to figure out how I can put my time, energy into getting better. So I never take it as a question on me personally. I take it as a question on my experience. And all of those times it was right. And so I think it's been this journey of trying to learn and trying to remain very resilient, when you find yourself behind.
Isn't it funny that I always feel behind too? I always feel like I'm not doing enough. I'm not trying hard enough.
Yes.
I'm not producing enough good work, right? And I always tell myself, if I just push a little bit harder, then it will be enough.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I am chasing this imaginary dragon of getting over the hill of not enough.
Yes.
But the thing that maybe is pushing me in the same way is the feeling that it's not enough.
Yeah.
It's this, it's really, so there's no.
It actually, now this feeling in my stomach of being, behind or getting up in the morning and looking at how much needs to happen, I've embraced it. I've embraced it and made my peace with it, because if I look back, those are the times in my life where I've grown the most. When, I was an engineer, I then went to business school and got into my first sales job. I was like, I have no idea. I'm an engineer from India, and now I have a quota. What am I going to do in this role, and how am I going to be successful? And, I'm an introvert. I don't play sports. I don't banter. I'm not particularly great at building relationships. Maybe now over the years, I've gotten a little bit better, but I have all of the inherent disadvantages of not being successful in sales. And that kept me awake. I was like, I'm going to crack this thing. And what I found is that I was not good in the first 5 minutes of a sales call, but I was actually very good in the next 25 minutes of the sales call because I used almost an engineer's approach to breaking down the problems and figuring out, challenges. I would read 10Ks, I would read 10Qs, I would listen to, company management speak, and then I would ask them a question 10 minutes in, and they'd be like, that is the biggest challenge that we have. And then we'll be like, let's go into the challenge. Why have you had that challenge? And then, be present and like repeat back to them why that was a challenge. And then I was like, you know what? I really suck at that first 5 minutes, but then I know how to crack the next, 25 minutes. Let me just do that. And then that made me better as a sales professional in front of customers. And that was hard work. But after like 10 years, I was like, I think I've learned so much. I've learned not only the art of selling, I've learned the actual buying process and the buyer's like approach to, thinking about investments. And that has helped me in my career. And so I look at periods where I feel like I'm behind, and that's when I learned the most. And so now I have embraced that discomfort. I've embraced that just feeling behind, thing that you wake up every morning with, and that's helped. So you look back at your life and your career, and there are things that serve you well, and then things that don't serve you well. And things that serve you well, even if they make you feel uncomfortable, it's okay. Like you embrace it and you kind of go. So
Totally.
I've learned to live with that.
On the stakeholder management thing,
Yeah.
do you think that the reason why so many CEOs say that it's really lonely, and then nobody really believes them until they get into the CEO job, and then they realize it's really lonely,
Yes.
is because, again, I don't know, but you tell
Yeah.
me, is it because you feel like across all of these stakeholders, there's just somebody you're always letting down?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing. You cannot talk about it, right? Like when
Well, you can't talk about it to your team.
No,
You can't talk about it to your board.
No.
You can't talk about it to another CEO because they don't have enough context on your business.
Yeah. I mean, it is very, very lonely. Now, I've been fortunate where, as we were doing all of this around COVID, we created like a CEO group and a network of CEOs because we were all at home. We were all trying to navigate, COVID, the pandemic, and, every possible, twist and turn. And I have a good network, but you're right. Like even within that CEO network, they're not going through exactly what you're going through. And I think in almost every other role, you have a set of peers that are going through exactly what you're going through, and you can have a conversation with them. But, I love my team. I work with them every single day. But if there is a challenge with, I don't know, a member of the board or, something else, I'm not going to go and like talk to them about it. So you're dealing with that. And at the end of the day, you have to empower your teams and delegate, work, and they have to do it. But if something doesn't go well, you are accountable. You're 100% accountable. And there are times where I've said to the board that this is on me. Something didn't go well, a bet didn't go well, or a change that we made didn't go well. I know who did it, and I'm giving them coaching, I'm giving them guidance, I'm giving them, performance reviews, but it is on me. The accountability is on me. So it is very lonely. You cannot talk about it.
Can you talk to Brian? Let me
Absolutely.
let me ask you, he's been the CEO for 15 years.
Yeah.
He founded the company.
Yeah.
Between him and his co-founder.
Yeah.
There's nobody that has more context on the business.
Absolutely.
But doesn't deep down part of you say I want him to view me as an independent and competent leader? Like,
100%.
isn't there some part of you that's like, this is my thing now. Like, I need to put my flavor on it. I can't show him all of my deepest and darkest insecurities because, like I want him to feel like it's in good hands.
Yes. I mean, and it's not even my, like it has been phenomenal to have Brian and Dharmesh on, during this whole part, right? And we do have these conversations. And sometimes Brian will be like, yeah, that's a problem. I had that problem for 15 years. So I'm like, okay. And he'll go, I don't have an answer, but you should know that I had the same problem. And I'm like, okay, thank you. That is validating and that's helpful. And then there are other times where he will say that he was like a startup to scale up CEO, and I'm trying to do scale up to grown up company, right? And so my decisions might look very different than some of the decisions that he's made. And I would need for him to like trust me in making those decisions, and that comes with time. And so I think like it's lonely. It's the most challenging job I have ever done, and I would call it more than a job. It's like it's my life now. It's just it consumes everything you have in your life, and you got to give it your 200%. There's no other way to do that.
That makes sense. Is there a stakeholder that you feel like you let down the most? Like, is there a stakeholder that you felt like, all right, I took my lumps on this one and I'm going to get better as a result? I didn't expect that.
I actually think that it would be employees, right? And I would say this because, we've been, fantastic in terms of like growth, but then we talked about the challenges of 22. And then we talked about the challenges of like, what happens when you pull forward demand, for many years to come into like a couple of years? Like you grow, you don't have the systems. I think employees were like, we can't get work done because there's so much pull forward demand. And they didn't articulate it that way. They said, it's becoming harder to get work done at HubSpot. And true enough, of course it is, because we haven't built the company for the scale that we are now seeing as a company. And then, we had to do a layoff. We've done one layoff. We did it in January 2023.
And you had to do it.
I had to do it. And it was, look, I think, looking back, we pulled the lever to slow down hiring in June 2022. And the earliest indicator that things were going down were April 2022. So from a reaction time standpoint, it was quick, but it was not hard enough. And we'd already hired all these people in 2021. And so I think it was a super hard decision to make. And I think, maybe rightfully so, I lost credibility as a leader to, having taken that decision. It was, of course, everybody agreed. The board agreed with me. Brian Dharmesh agreed with me, but it was my decision. And you
think you lost credibility in the eyes of the employees?
Absolutely.
Because you made a commitment to them that this is a great place for them, their families, their careers.
Yeah.
And you couldn't meet that commitment?
Absolutely. And
some skittishness with everybody else. Like, oh, geez, like new CEO, here we go.
Yeah. And absolutely lost credibility with the employees. And I've explained it to them. I think that I've given the context, and I've showed that, look, everybody else is doing it like every year, and we've not. And we really tried to kind of maintain, I always have this saying where I say, like, make new mistakes. If you make a mistake, learn deeply from it and try not to ever do that mistake and make new mistakes. And so I think that's part of the learning, but absolutely lost credibility with employees, and still trying to, make that up. And it's also the context of, it's easy when everybody is winning. It's not so easy when you're going through downturns as we have gone through in the last couple of years. And on top of that, let's pivot to AI. Let's make a whole roadmap change, and let's, figure out how we're going to do work from home and trying to get the productivity up. And so it's been, fairly tumultuous. And so I do think that we've doubled down on customers. We've kept that going. But yes, it's very hard to balance all of that given the circumstances.
Is sitting still difficult for you?
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
yes.
Like, can you like veg out on a couch?
No. No, I have not been able to veg out on a couch.
Why not?
For me,
do you feel like you're wasting time?
Yeah, the better part of like 20 years has been sometimes on the couch, but reading, looking at like
feeling like
something.
you're being
Yeah.
productive.
Yeah, like always, I don't think I have sat on the couch without my laptop in 20 years.
Come
Joubin.
on.
I have not. I have not. Like, I think that my kids will now say, like my son who's going off to college, and he's like, Mom, I have 4 months with you. And this is like at 11 o'clock in the night, and be like, can you just shut down the computer for 5 minutes and talk to me? And I'm like, yes, I will. And I do. I try to do it, but it's at 11 at night, and whole evening I'm sitting on the couch. He's probably doing something there, and I can't do it. Like, it's again, it's one, so exciting. The industry has always been like this. Like I tell people, don't join tech if you don't want change. If you want like a 9-to-5 job in a status quo industry where your skills are kind of like improving 1% a year, don't join this, because this is like a vibrant industry. You're making changes all the time. You're constantly learning. And for me, if I'm not learning, I already have this like mental anxiety of I'm behind from where I came up. So I'm always like, if I'm not learning, I'm behind.
Yeah. So you feel like if you're not learning, you're just like, you're completely wasting,
Yeah.
you're just wasting your time.
Yeah.
But what happens if you want to, like, how do you slow down? Is there such thing?
I think, of course, there is such things. I think that for me,
do you feel the need to slow down? Meaning, like, do you need a break from something that gives you so much energy and excitement?
Look, I think that
honestly,
I do. So I'll say that my Saturdays are precious to me, because it is really a time my husband and I like go for a long walk. I do yoga, I do meditation. So those days are good. And then we take vacations, right? And we go on vacations, and, the first 3-4 days, I'm like, okay,
totally.
I can't like, what's going on in the world? And then the next 7 days, I actually get into it. And whether it is, going somewhere or going on a retreat, whatever it is, I sink into that moment. And then the last 3 days, I'm like, let me get back.
Do you, when on a Saturday, do you not feel... is that urge to check your email?
No.
It's gone?
No, it is gone, because I will tell you what, the alternate, when I did not do that, when I didn't take breaks, whether it was a vacation or, my Saturday, I got burnt out pretty quickly, right? Like I would get into this place where I was like burning out by June, July in a year. I'd be like, I'm so exhausted, I can't like function. And I also think that creativity actually slows down if you don't get some break. And for me, every evening I take like an hour. Either I am doing yoga or doing some kind of like workout or walking or listening to music. That is a break. My Saturdays are a break. So I have like inbuilt breaks, and then I'll take like longer vacations. And but even in the vacations, my idea of a good time is reading like a great book. And that is my idea of a good time. So yeah, I'll put down my laptop, but I'm reading like, I read like 4 books at a time, because I don't have the patience to finish a book.
Are you serious?
I can't ever finish a book.
So when you travel, you bring 4 books with you?
And they're all physical. Like, this is my old
schoolness. Of course, you can't use a Kindle.
I mean, Kindle doesn't
I don't like it either.
I don't know. I read a lot, of magazines and articles online. But I think like for me, a book is like a physical book, and I sit there, and to me,
so you actually pack 4 books with you?
Oh, yeah.
And then you read them concurrently?
Yeah.
Like you'll read a chapter, you'll be like, all right, I'm done with this for now. You go to another book, you read a different.
I parallel read.
Are you serious?
I know. But don't you think that some of these business books, you read 2 chapters and then you're kind of like, I got it.
Yeah.
And then the next, 8 chapters are like proving 2 points from the first 2 chapters. And
That's
you're like,
fair. And are they all business books?
No, like some of them are business books. Some of them are like super dense. Like I've been trying to read Gödel Escherbach. Have you read this one?
No, but even just the name makes me think I'm probably not qualified.
No, I myself am not qualified. So this book, I can maybe read 10 pages at a time. It is math, it's architecture and music and the commonality across all of this.
Jeez.
And it's beautifully written, but very intense. And I can only read 10 pages at a time. And then I'm reading Sapiens, and I'm on like probably chapter 5 now of that. And I can only read one chapter at a time. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, me neither.
I I used to.
I tried.
I try, but no, I can't.
I used to feel like I had to finish books, just like out of like a commitment. Like I started a book, I got to finish it.
That, yeah.
And it was Naval. I don't know Naval. I just heard him on a podcast talking about how he's like, I never finish books. Like I never feel pressure to finish books.
Yeah.
I go back to books. They come. I highlight books. He's like, but if I don't feel like I want to finish a book, I move on to the next one, because he's like, that's when you stop reading.
Exactly.
Is when you feel like you have to finish a book. It's sitting on your bedside table. And you're like, don't give yourself permission to go to the next book, because you're like, no, I got to finish this book. Then you just stop reading because you'd rather just not read the shitty book you're reading.
Totally. And this is why I've given the permission. And I just love books. In fact, like when I was growing up, I was in this small town, and I still remember the librarian in my town saying, your daughter, and I would not even go to the library. I'd ask my mom to bring these, like I'd write down titles and my mom would bring it and I'd be reading it. And this was my introverted self back then. And the librarian once said, your daughter has read every book in this library. Please don't come here. And my mom was like, she said that you've read every book in the library. Like this was my window into the world. This is like what cost me, like, all of the curiosity about the world. And so for me, the best idea of a Saturday is like a long walk, a little bit of like yoga, and a book, and one chapter of the book, not more.
That is awesome. I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you.
I really do. You're wonderful. Thank you. Are you hiring?
Yes, absolutely.
Any key roles? Any
R&D, sales.
Okay.
We want to build product. We want to sell product.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. We are continuing to hire there.
And when you hear the word grit, what do you think of?
I think of the intentional choices I have made and the resilience to follow through with those intentional choices. Coming to America was an intentional choice. Being an engineer, back in the 80s, 90s in India was an intentional choice. Going to sales and trying to make it in sales was an intentional choice. And so I think for me, it is making intentional choices that might not always be conventional wisdom, and having the resilience to see it through. Everything that we do in life, there will be good days and bad days. There will be great highs and low lows. And everything has to start with having the resilience to see what you want to accomplish in that. And so that's what, grit has been for me.
I can't wait to see what choices you make, what choices you make next.
Thank you, Joubin.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to connect with you.
That's it for now. If you liked the episode, please leave us a review or go back into the archives where we've done more than 200 episodes with some fantastic folks. This podcast is a Kleiner Perkins production, and I'm Joubin. Thanks for listening.